Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here with my review of The End of Oak Street. This is the third film from director David Robert Mitchell, following It Follows and Under the Silver Lake, but certainly a big jump in budget for him here, going into a lot of fantasy and effects with this story set in 1982, at least initially, has Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor play a married couple living in small town suburbia with their two kids who have something very strange happen when their entire little neighborhood gets transported, and suddenly there are dinosaurs amongst them. There are dinosaurs walking down their street, and there are dinosaurs trying to eat them. Conceptually, this is just a fun idea. And, the funny thing is that there are not that many dinosaur movies. Patrick Willems actually did an interesting video about this recently, and the fact that the Jurassic franchise has really not just dominated in the area of modern day dinosaur movies, but for the most part, it's the only thing going. And that's weird because it's not like they're copyrighted or anything. Anyone can do a dinosaur movie, but we don't get that many of them. And the idea of dinosaurs in suburbia, what this family is dealing with, is a really fun, engaging one. And also, it's hard not to think about the fact that the recent Jurassic World movies, how they dropped the ball on the concept of dinosaurs amongst us after Fallen Kingdom opened that arena, and now it was like, oh, they're out everywhere, they're out in our world. And then how quickly they pulled back from that, and how the last two movies really didn't want to deal with that almost at all. And so this feels like a Jurassic World sequel we should have got and did not get, as we get to see what it is like to deal with these things just constantly smashing through houses, over houses, into houses, things we got little glimpses of in the Jurassic movies, maybe here and there, but is the full core of this movie. And it really delivers on that front. And I've got some quibbles with the movie, which I'm going to talk about shortly. But overall, I think it just delivers on the concept so well. Mitchell really rises to the occasion of dealing with this bigger budget and these bigger set pieces and the action and the effects of it all. And I think he's very clever with how he does it. This movie has a reported $80 million budget, which is, not small, but it is not a Jurassic Park size budget. It is not, a mega blockbuster budget. So, he has to be creative here. And there are some fun sequences early on that deal with dinosaurs behind walls and kind of hidden for a point until they're not. And sometimes you can see the seams a little with the effects, but I think it's easy to be forgiving when you are enjoying the set pieces as much as they're easy to enjoy here. And when you've got these sequences where the family is running down the street and there are dinosaurs everywhere and there are dinosaurs attacking their neighbors, and it's really exciting, and just, yeah, it was hard not to have a really good time with those sequences. It's a little bit of a clunky start, I think, at the top of this movie. Some of the world building and some of the relationship building we get here, I think, is a little awkward or a little too on the nose because, we meet these characters and we meet Ewan McGregor and Anne Hathaway, and these characters are having, marital difficulties, and it's very kind of obvious as far as like, oh, they're going to be tested now, and I wonder if this series of events will maybe make them reassess their relationship and what's really important. And there's a couple of unintentional laughs when something happens, like, say, a big argument breaking out at a time where you just feel like, let's table that right now. There are literally bigger things to deal with outside at the moment. But I really like these actors in general, and I really like them in this film together. This has been quite a year for Anne Hathaway, with just so many different performances and so many different kinds of movies. She's great here as usual, and it's really fun to see her character sort of rise up. And, she ends up, holding a gun, running down the street, shooting at dinosaurs, and there's just something so cool about that, but it doesn't go over the top with it. She's not suddenly a superhero. She is just a woman in the moment doing what she has to try to protect her family and to try to, do it in the most straightforward way. She is the more realistic one of this couple, and she is the more practical one, and she is warning him that they might have to accept that there's no way out of this situation at times. And yeah, I just really liked her performance here playing that type of character. And Ewan McGregor he's the messier character of the two. He is a guy who has been sort of faltering and struggling in his marriage, with his career. And he's trying to rise to the occasion when something like this insane happens and how can you? But it's not as easy for him. She kind of slips into that role a little more easily, but I do think there's a really nice push-pull between them. I also really liked Maisie Stella and Christian Convery has their kids. I think the four of them have a really good family dynamic. You believe the chemistry of them as a family. You believe the squabbling, even if it goes a little heavy-handed on it early on and a couple other times, and you are rooting for them to survive as you are rooting for, of course, the family dog. And there is a very adorable dog here, and his name is Starbuck, and I love him. I really appreciated the visual design of The End of Oak Street and how it looks at 1982 because there is a lot of late 70s in this movie. As there should be. I think a lot of movies set in the 80s, especially the early 80s, make the mistake of going all in on the 80s-ness, of being like, well, it's the 80s. We got to put in a lot of 80s stuff. 80s visuals, 80s style. But in 1982, in small town suburbia, they still have a lot of things left over from the late 70s, both as far as, their furniture, their clothing, things in their rooms, some of their, toys and just tools. And you really get that here. It took me a little bit to figure out what year it was, but I was okay with that because and realized, oh, it is the early 80s, but they're being a little bit more realistic about what it would look like than some movies in a movie that has plenty of things that aren't realistic. But I do think that helps ground it in those early scenes. I do think the movie is hard to grasp tonally, which is I don't mind when a movie kind of weaves in between sort of lighter and darker elements, but this film sometimes feels like they couldn't quite decide what they wanted to do as far as are we a family adventure movie? And there are huge trappings of Amblin here. J.J. Abrams produced this movie, and it's reminiscent of Super 8 as far as trying to grab that Amblin Spielberg feel. And it does that a lot in those early scenes. But then when things go insane and dinosaurs are killing people, there's that question of, well, how dark are we? How much are we going to depict on screen how messed up this is? And I feel like you can feel a little bit of a struggle that they never quite figure it out. And, sometimes it gets pretty damn dark and twisty turny. And there were some impressive moments for me as far as, like, oh, they're going there. But then sometimes they dial it back, and I just felt like, oh, they couldn't quite figure that out. I still think the movie just it works a lot with the sort of insanity of this situation, but it is a little confusing where they want it to land. And I think that especially is true at the very end of the movie. The last two or three scenes in the movie gave me kind of cinematic whiplash because there are some major things that happen, and then suddenly the next scene seems to like take it back or undercut it a little bit. And I don't know how much they were, uncertain how to end the film, and maybe that there was some back and forth there. Didn't love the ending for that reason. The very end and some of the resolution felt a little too neat for me. Uh, so it's a weird movie because on one hand, I'm like, there's a lot of flaws here. There's a lot of things where I feel like you could pull the strings and, it might come apart. And yet I also think that this movie can be really and truly a blast at so many points. And, again, just does completely deliver on what it is promising in the advertisements and what you want to see in a movie like this as far as dinosaurs in suburbia. And so I really had a good time with like 70% of it. And then there's these other parts where I was like, oh, I wish that was a little different, or I wish they kind of figured that out or gotten to this place a little cleaner. And there are some unintentional laughs along the way because of that, I think, because of that stumbling it does. But I still had a really good time. I think that the core of the movie is very satisfying and that there is a lot to enjoy here along the way. So, those are my thoughts on The End of Oak Street, which will be in theaters this coming weekend. I do hope people discover this movie. I mean, it's opening in the middle of Spider-Man Brand New Day and The Odyssey, just absolutely dominating has event movies, and this is not at that scale, and yet it still offers its own unique fun and its own unique thrills and does have its own vibe to it. And so I think that there definitely is a place for The End of Oak Street out there at the box office. We'll see if enough people show up at the box office for it. All right, guys, if you can like and subscribe, that would be excellent. Thanks a lot.